Okay, if you're a student, you definitely know this feeling. You spend ages getting all the little rules of a citation style down, and then boom, a new handbook comes out. Today we're going to dive into the Modern Language Association's ninth edition, see what's new, what's the same, and honestly, why it's probably a good thing. Yeah, I can practically hear the collective groan from here. Just when you finally felt confident with MLA 8, a new edition shows up. It can totally feel like the goalposts are always shifting. So, is this some massive overhaul that's going to make you relearn everything? Or is it just a minor tune-up? Let's find out. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is just the size of this thing. The 8th edition was pretty slim, only 146 pages. This new ninth edition, it's a whopping 367. But before you panic, that huge increase isn't 200 pages of brand new rules. Phew. Most of that extra space is actually dedicated to making the existing rules way, way clearer. So this new handbook dropped back in April 2021, and the whole point was to make it more comprehensive and a lot more user-friendly. So let's get right to it. What actually changed, and what do you really need to know? Look, I know it feels like a burden, but it's probably better to think of MLA 9 as a really helpful upgrade. The goal here wasn't just to add more rules for the sake of it, but to give us clearer guidance for the way we actually do research now, which, is more and more digital every day. So what exactly did they pack into all those extra pages? Well, a lot of really useful stuff, actually. There's a whole new chapter on just formatting your paper, which is awesome. There's guidance on using inclusive language, more details on things like annotated bibliographies, and finally, official rules for how to cite social media. And maybe the best part is a massive appendix with over 200 citation examples. Okay, deep breaths, everyone. Here's the best news of all. That fundamental structure you spent all that time learning for MLA 8 is still here. The whole container system, where you identify the source and then the bigger container it's in, like an article inside a journal, that's still the heart of every single citation. You do not have to relearn the basic formula. All right, so now that we've established you don't have to throw everything you learned out the window, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Most of the really important changes are going to pop up in your works cited list. They're mostly small adjustments, but they're designed to make your citations a lot clearer for whoever's reading your paper. First up, let's talk about something called a DOI, or Digital Object Identifier. If you've used academic journals online, you've seen these. It's that unique string of characters that acts as a permanent link to an article. It's super important for online research, and MLA 9 has a new way of formatting it. Now, the change here looks really simple, but it's actually a pretty big deal for usability. In MLA 8, you just slapped DOI in front of the number, but now MLA 9 wants you to format it as a full stable URL. And the reason is simple. It makes the DOI a clickable link in a digital document. That is way more practical and helps prevent those annoying broken links. Oh man, we have all been there, right? You find a great source on a website, and the URL is this insane jumble of letters and symbols that goes on for like 5 lines. It just makes your works cited page look like a total mess. It's a classic headache. Well, it looks like MLA 9 has heard our prayers. The 8th edition wanted that whole, long, ugly URL. The 9th edition basically says, yeah, you can and probably should shorten that thing. You can usually just get rid of the https:// part and cut the address off right after the main website name. This keeps your bibliography looking clean without losing any essential info. Okay, this next one is a huge deal. For years, we all just had to kind of guess how to properly cite a tweet, or an Instagram post, or a TikTok. Well, MLA 9 finally gives us clear official rules for these sources, which we're all using more and more. So before, you'd start with the username, like the handle, but the new guideline completely flips that around. Now you start with the author's actual name, if you know it, and then you put their username in square brackets. It's a simple switch, but it prioritizes the person behind the account, which fits right in with MLA's general focus on authorship. Okay, and there are a few other little tweaks you should know about. These are the small details that really show your professor you're on top of your game. First, seasons like spring or fall in publication dates are lowercase now. When you're noting an author's real name behind a pen name, you use square brackets, not parentheses. And you can now just abbreviate University Press to UP. Easy peasy. All right, let's switch gears to in-text citations. The little ones in parentheses inside your paragraphs. The good news here? The basic format that you already know, like author page, has not changed. What the new handbook does is give us a lot more guidance for all those weird, tricky situations we run into. So, one interesting thing is that MLA 9 introduces a new term, citation in prose. This is just a fancy name for when you mention the author's name directly in your sentence, like when you write, "as Smith argues." It's a small change, but it helps bring MLA's language more in line with other styles like APA. And this is where those extra pages in the handbook really come in handy. The new guidance tackles a ton of real-world problems, like what do you do if you're citing two different authors who both have the last name Kawakami? Or how do you shorten a super long corporate offer name? MLA 9 now has clear answers for all these specific cases. So here's a perfect example of how that works for authors with the same last name. If you use their name in your sentence, a citation in prose, you use their full name. But if you're putting it in the parentheses at the end, you just use their first initial to tell them apart. It's a really simple and clean solution. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Why do we even have to go through all this? Why can't they just leave the rules alone? I get it, it can seem frustrating, but there's a really good reason. These styles aren't just arbitrary rules. They have to change and adapt to how we find and use information. Well, to get it, you have to remember what these styles are for. They're not all the same. MLA is mainly for the humanities, so it puts a big emphasis on the author. APA is for social sciences, where the date is super important to show research is current, and Chicago is often used in history, where detailed footnotes are key. Each one is a tool designed for a specific job. And here's the bottom line. These citation styles aren't set in stone, because the world isn't set in stone. When MLA was first created, nobody was trying to cite a tweet or an Instagram post. As our world of information changes, the rules for how we document it have to change too. All these updates in MLA 9 are a direct response to the digital world we're all living in, which of course leads to a really fascinating question for the future. We are right on the cusp of an era where AI-generated text is becoming a common tool. So how do you cite an idea that came from a chatbot? What does authorship even mean in that context? It's a huge challenge, and you can bet it's something that MLA 10 is almost certainly going to have to figure out.